Welcome back, Foxy Games UK new and existing subscribers. It is Monday, September 23rd. Now, if you're new around here, I'm Fox, your reliable source of aggregated video game news, speculation, and rampant rumour. Foxy Games UK news sourced via multiple outlets. Links are available in video descriptions where applicable. So, in an article over at gamingbolt.com, which caught my attention regarding next-gen PS5 and Xbox Scarlett consoles, and exactly how their respective platform holders will need to market them. But where to begin? Well, we should probably start with this. I think most would agree we have hit a point where visuals are no longer the sole or singular selling point for a next-generation games console, in this case the incoming PS5 and Xbox Scarlett. Now, gone are the days where gamers purchase a game simply based on the merit of spectacular graphics, though that's not to say visuals are unimportant, because clearly people do like a bit of eye candy, though eye candy graphics no longer inject that impulsive feeling of I've got to have it, it's a must-have item, because if that were indeed the case, Xbox One X would be the best-selling console on the market and games would sell the most on it. For the most part, people who buy and play games today already believe the graphics we currently experience are pretty much good enough. It's no longer like the PlayStation 2 era, where we were obviously, we could see that games could look exponentially better. Even when computing hardware improves tenfold, graphics only see marginal improvements. Now, the truth of the matter is, we are long past what is referred to as the point of diminishing marginal returns. For a lot of people, PS4 Pro and Xbox One X are more than good enough in the graphics department. Even a standard PS4 or Xbox One S, for example, are good enough to wow the retina of your eyes. You could extend this to even Nintendo Switch games. Now, of course, the enthusiast who obsesses and loses sleep over the pixel counting of every frame a game outputs in a single second would probably disagree, but for the most mainstream audiences, games on the PS4, Xbox One and yes, Nintendo Switch look great. By the way, happy 130th birthday, Nintendo. To think the big N started way back in 1889. But I digress. So make no mistake, PlayStation 5 and Xbox Scarlett represent a paradigm change in how the next generation of gaming hardware will have to be marketed. For the longest time, new hardware has been marketed on the basis of better graphics. Cue any 1990s marketing campaign. Out of this world visuals like you've never experienced before. Now you're playing with power. From the 16-bit era, SNES, Genesis or Mega Drive in Japan or the UK, the 32-bit era of 3DO, PlayStation 1, Sega Saturn, etc., and the 64-bit era, Atari, Jaguar N64, and of course 128-bit era, Sega Dreamcast, PlayStation 2, Xbox, and so forth. Now, CD-ROM, of course, we know powered PlayStation, and the 64-bit N64 was run on cartridges, but were both superior to the SNES and Genesis. The Dreamcast, GameCube, Xbox, and PlayStation 2 were all marketed on the basis of their graphical prowess. The high-definition generation of consoles was a very stark improvement on what had come before, and the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One were put out as a clear response to the graphical limitations of the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. Even consoles like Wii or Wii U represent a graphical improvement over their immediate predecessors, even when they are not as powerful as their contemporaries from other companies. But with PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Scarlett, you can't just market the new machines on the promise of better graphics. You can't even market the next PlayStation or Xbox leaning too heavily on 4K, since Sony and Microsoft ran with this current gen, and the consumer will rightly ask the rather poignant question, more 4K, so what's new? So this isn't like the Nintendo 64, where it was evident there was something far better possible, nor is it like the Xbox 360, which was very clearly reaching its limits in terms of potential by, say, 2012 and 2013. Visually, the Xbox One and PS4 both feel like consoles that could go on for a few more years without anyone blinking an eye. That's if it were not for that rather gaping hole we call performance. Just saying PlayStation 5 will let you play God of War, but even prettier isn't going to be good enough. Yes, it's great that it will be prettier, and we should all expect and demand the best for our money, but very few people will buy the new machines only because of the graphical improvements. The current consoles already seem more than adequate enough in that department, in my opinion. Now, the new consoles have to be marketed on more fronts than just graphics. This is a point that many of us have argued for quite some time now, and I tip my hat to the writer of the article, Premuth, for the pleasant reminder. So whether it's the ecosystem lock-in or the battle for content and exclusives, the next generation of consoles will be sold on things other than just it looks better. Nintendo, to their credit, understood this, which is why they positioned the Switch as the perfect gaming device for millennial lifestyles, allowing you to play anywhere, at any time, and on your own terms. Both Microsoft and Sony emphasized the point in their respective first looks at their next generation consoles. Both companies intimated the kinds of spec they were aiming for, but what they focused on the most was the SSD functionality that would allow for seamless and instantaneous loading, placing far less strain on the CPU and GPU, allowing for more free resources and more sophisticated games in terms of AI and systems. Now, neither Sony nor Microsoft's pitch was simply prettier games. Their respective pitches were better games, and there's a difference. We're no longer being sold hardware on the basis of how many dots and lines there will be on the screen. We're now being sold hardware on the basis of what it can do in offering quality of life features. Now, do not be so naive to believe graphics won't matter, because indeed it will. Once Sony and Microsoft get the messaging across in terms of new features, both will undoubtedly start to emphasize how beautifully crafted their respective first-party games look. After all, the human brain is conditioned to judge everything in an instant on what the eyes see. Only knowledge, experience, and education dictate how we individually rationalize and process that initial thought. Hence the phrase think before you speak, or comment in these video comments. And yes, sure, we'll witness yet another new generation of games, and gamers will pit against each other on sites like Digital Foundry, Gaming Bolt, NX Gamer, Candyland, you name it. Gamers will more than likely run through the gamut to see which version looks better, Xbox or PlayStation, followed by a raucous of discussion as to whether or not dynamic 4K is better than a steady 4K with lowered performance. Look, my version has way more strands of grass than yours, yada yada yada. This will continue to happen, unfortunately, but for the larger market, these points may as well be irrelevant. There was a time not even 2 decades ago when PlayStation 2 was sold on the basis of its future age graphics. Emotion engine, anyone? Marketing drivel for sure, unless we forget the Xbox 360 was pitched for its high-def capabilities. This is really in spite of the launch units not supporting HDMI, instead using the antiquated composite cables. Almost everyone bought into those systems on the basis of graphical promise. With the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Scarlett, that won't be the case. We're already being steered away from really counting next-gen power using the T-flop method. Apparently, next-gen has so many other systems in place that merely counting T-flop power is a rather pointless exercise. Next-gen T-flops just won't equate like this current generation of consoles. Remember, Sony and Microsoft will be asking you to part with anything from $399 to $599 US, or $349 to $549 UK pounds, so they'll need to do a whole lot more than sticking another 4K logo with an asterisk on the box. Next gen is going to be a tougher sell than ever before, in fact tougher than this current gen and the one before that. PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 were both marketed as high-def 1080p consoles to own, and on both fronts both failed to deliver spectacularly. And both PlayStation 4 and Xbox One were positioned as 1080p, they were not consistent in that at all. As for PlayStation 4 Pro and Xbox Scarlett, dynamic 4K and true 4K were promised, and Sony were the closest to delivering on that simply because they never promised native 4K at any conjecture, but Microsoft did. And yet, looking at both systems, we still receive sub 1440p games, with some titles even displaying at just 1080p with no checkerboarding in sight at all. Sure, Xbox One X does get closer to achieving 4K, but we were promised 4K. We weren't promised close, but no cigar. We were promised native 4K, so it could be Microsoft who has the most pixels to prove next gen. This is why marketing next gen systems as 4K monsters simply won't work. And when all's said and done, marketing 4K to the masses all over again just won't be good enough. So I put the question to you, the people. How should Sony or Microsoft market PlayStation 5 and Xbox Scarlett respectively? Super fast loading, instant gameplay and no waiting? How about this gen we promised 4K but next gen we're going to deliver on that promise? No, that probably wouldn't go down too well. Or advanced AI, characters so lifelike, full of emotion and totally believable, only on PlayStation, only on Xbox, yada yada yada. Silky smooth 60 plus frames per second game performance sounds good, but really it's what we all want, isn't it? Unfortunately that doesn't sell well on box packaging, otherwise it would already be a thing. So what are we left with? Realistic Hollywood movie special effects using integrated ray tracing technology? Sounds nice, doesn't it? Except only a small comparative pocket of game enthusiasts will know what any of that means. The everyday casual consumer, on the other hand, will not. The problem for both Sony and Microsoft's marketing divisions is, quite simply, we've been there, done that, and we've even worn the flaming t-shirt. I'll certainly be interested in public opinion on this. So, what say you? Go ahead, sound off, share your thoughts and opinions on today's video, because that unfortunately brings us to the end of yet another video, but let's continue the discussion cordially in the comments. And for all your current and next gen news updates, rumour and rampant speculation, hit the like button, spread the word and keep it locked to Foxy Games UK. Remember, all relevant links where applicable can be found in this video's description. Go ahead, subscribe to Foxy Games UK, remember to hit the notification bell so you never miss content. Thumbs up if you like it here and help us reach more like-minded gamers simply by sharing the video. And consider supporting Foxy Games UK via Patreon, and or grab yourself a Foxy Games UK branded t-shirt or hoodie available in various colours and designs. You'll find both links in this video's description. Truly appreciate the support. And that concludes our time together today. It was certainly great hanging out. Until the next video, remember, play games, not corporations.